This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Good evening, Philippines, and good day, world. It's Wednesday, November 22nd, 2023, and you're watching Newsline World. I'm Sarah Santos, and we will bring you the top stories we've gathered from all over the world. Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy said that people still love the Duterte brand of leadership. This comes amid the former president's possible return to the political arena if Vice President Sara Duterte gets impeached. Israel and Hamas have reached a temporary trade that involves freeing some hostages in exchange for Palestinians imprisoned in Israeli jails. After multiple tries, North Korea has successfully launched its first spy satellite, which drew condemnation from Japan. India has decided to resume its e-visa services for Canadians following a diplomatic spat between New Delhi and Ottawa. And Brazil recorded its hottest temperature ever during an unprecedented spring heat wave. These and more for tonight's edition of Newsline World. And for our first news, Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy gave his statement on Russia's recent move involving the LGBTQ international movement. For more details, here's my report.
Well, when any kind of movement, not only the LGBTQ, any kind of movement that will disrupt national unity should be banned. Any activity, not only LGBTQ activities.
This was the response of Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy in his program Spotlight Wednesday, November 22nd, in relation to the Russian Justice Ministry's legal bid to declare the LGBTQ international movement as an extremist group. According to Russia's Justice Ministry, the said group is showing signs and manifestation of extremist nature, including incitement of social and religious discord. The Russian government defended the said move as LGBTQ activism was seen as part of an attack by the West on traditional Russian values. Meanwhile, for Pastor Apollo, the activities of the LGBTQ international movement divides a country as it destroys national unity. The good pastor added that the said group should just continue with their activities without destroying a nation's unity.
The LGBTQ activities seem to really divide the nation of where it is in unity right now. So, given the perspective of Russia, the way it is being governed right now, they cannot afford to have disunity in Russia. And, you know, seeing how the West has really sexualize the genders, separate them, and see Russia is very strict about that. Even some African countries are very strict about that in setting aside the LGBTQ movement as lawless. Even in Africa they are doing that. So it is for the interest of their nation's unity that they are doing that. And maybe they cannot really totally ban the genderization of the LGBTQs. But the LGBTQs should have their not being always publicized to disrupt national unity. Yes. That is what Russia is after, not to disrupt national unity. So they have to be banned, you know. So they have to be prosecuted if they do that. It's the same in some countries in Africa. No. So if they just want to continue on their own without disrupting national unity. Yun ang if you are Putin or if you are any kind of presidential leader in any country, the last thing you have to have is disunity in your country because of some movements. As a leader, we don't want that. So as a leader, you have to do something to quell that kind. And I think Russia is doing exactly like that.
Meanwhile, Pastor Apollo defended the LGBTQ's rights when it comes to employment, housing, and other things. However, when it comes to the Word of God,
When it comes to employment, when it comes to housing, when it comes to the society, they are free to exercise. But when it comes to the spiritual law of God, I'm very sorry to say, I have to follow the Word of God.
Amen.
for God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Sarah Santos, SMNI News.
Of a successful attempt to launch its first military spy satellite into orbit, a move that earned strong criticisms from Tokyo and Washington. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida accused North Korea of breaching UN resolutions and expressed his condemnation of the launch in strongest possible terms. Kishida emphasized that the launch of a projectile that uses ballistic missile technology is clearly a violation of the United Nations resolution. Locals were startled by the loud, late-night alarm after officials issued an evacuation order to residents in the southern region of Okinawa. Local officials canceled the public announcement after the missile passed into the Pacific Ocean just before 11 p.m. on Tuesday local time. This is North Korea's third attempt to launch a military spy satellite after two previous efforts have failed this year. 以上日本から小島のつみニュースお伝えしました。SMNI News Japan.
China welcomed the visit of the Kumaito delegation of Japan for promoting the improvement and development of bilateral ties between both countries. Alisa Torres has the news.
Japan's Kumaito delegation received a welcome from China for promoting the improvement and development of bilateral relations. The Japanese delegation was led by Natsuo Yamaguchi, who is also the leader of the said ruling coalition party. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said that China hopes that the visit will push for improving the relationship between China and Japan.
欢迎山口纳基南党首率公民党代表团访华，希望通过沟通交流，推动中日关系改善和发展。
Meanwhile, Mao said that China believes that trilateral cooperation with China, Japan, and South Korea will be beneficial for the region.
中方认为，中日韩合作符合三方的共同利益，也有利于地区的稳定繁荣。三方正就本次外长会的有关事宜保持着沟通。
Mao also said that the entire Chinese side believes that trilateral cooperation serves the mutual interests of the three countries and promotes stability and development in the regions. Reporting, this has been Alisa Torres, SMNI News.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte believes that Ukraine has been left hanging in its fight or amid its fight against Russian forces. FPRRD and Pastor Apollo Sigibuloy also drew a comparison between the situation in Ukraine and the rising tensions in the disputed waters of the West Philippine Sea. Jade Calabroso reports.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte believes that Ukraine has been left hanging, even though the conflict between Ukraine and Russia is not yet over. In the latest episode of Gikat sa Masa para sa Masa, with Pastor Apollo Sigibuloy, the former president warned that if Ukraine is defeated, the situation for neighboring countries, which are also members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization or NATO, would be perilous.
Alam mo, si Putin naman, ninenervyos kasi Ukraine and Russia nakadikit yan. Yeah, it's just a thin line boundary. Oh. Kagaya ng ating China Sea dyan pati ano. So, in his maybe insecurity na talagang ano, or just also to challenge the might of the Americans, he purposely invaded Ukraine. Now, Ukraine was helped by America early on sa itong panggulong ito. Kasi sila rin yung nag-udyok eh. Join NATO. Nag-init itong si Putin. Ngayon, sinusuportahan nila.
To recall, on November 16, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky admitted that his country has received fewer artillery rounds since the outbreak of the war between Israel and Hamas on October 7. According to Zelensky, the competition for receiving munitions from the U.S. has intensified between Ukraine and Israel. On November 18, Zelensky's presidential aide, Mikhailo Podolyak, complained about the slow delivery of Western weapons and admitted that Ukraine's counteroffensive operations against Russia is probably not proceeding to the extent or at the speed they would like. Meanwhile, the U.S. Congress has failed to advance discussions on a new funding bill for Ukraine.
Ngayon, suddenly, in the thick of the fight, or pag ano na siso na ang sitwasyon sa Ukraine, pati, parang nagbigla na lang ang Amerika, wala kaming budget na. For anybody, for that matter, wala na kami. Basta, so, naiwan sa ere ngayon ang Ukraine. Ukraine has to fight and finance the war. I don't know from what source. Sana tulungan sila ng European countries. But if Ukraine falls, then Poland, Finland, doon sa Scandinavian countries, medyo
delikado sila.
Meanwhile, the situation in Ukraine is compared to the tension brewing in the West Philippine Sea. And due to the ongoing global turmoil, former President Duterte believes that the United States cannot be relied upon in case a conflict breaks out.
So, itong Amerika, well, they hindi naman pretend kasi talagang gumagastos, pero at what time would they abandon you? That is the problem. So you cannot rely. Kaya nitong nag-usap na si Biden pati si Jinping. Pagka nagkagulo dito, can we call upon the America forces to join the fray here? Yan ang problema.
Nagkasundo na.
Dahil sabihin naman ang Amerika, maliit na bagay yan, boundary lang yan. Bakit kami may kaalam? Magkaibigan na kami, no? Yan ang problema. That is how it, how
it's playing.
How life makes it turn around.
Para sa Ukraine.
Careful ka talaga ka dyan.
Meanwhile, Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy praised the foreign policy of former President Duterte towards China and again compared the diplomacy of the Philippines and the United States with that of China.
So, in your administration, you made a very wise move to not agitate or anything that will exacerbate the trouble. Naging kaibigan pa natin si Xi Jinping. At it has become a blessing to us na ngayon dinedemonize nitong mga ibang mga leader natin. Yung iba naman, tulad kay Biden, when Xi Jinping went to attend the APEC, royal welcome sa Amerika. Governor Newsom of California, napaka-royal welcome kay Xi Jinping. Si President Biden, in-invite siya, silang dalawa. Ito namang sa atin, we are making a belligerent move against China and Xi Jinping. So, ito nga yung laro ng geopolitics.
Meanwhile, former President Duterte has a message for President Bongbong Marcos regarding the issue in the West Philippine Sea.
Mr. President, if you want your citizens to fish there, go ahead. Yung maraming mga isda dyan Malawak yung Pilipino mga isda rin. Paano na lang? Kulang away? Because what is on the other side of the table? So what? We simply cannot afford it. So nanggaling talaga sa atin at kung baba. Kaya ako, istorya lang.
It can be remembered that PBBM and Chinese President Xi Jinping met on the sidelines of the APEC summit, where the two presidents agreed that the problems regarding South China Sea should not be the defining element of the relationship between the Philippines and China. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Jade Calabroso, SMNA News.
In other news, Brazil has recorded its hottest temperature in nearly 20 years as the country struggles with extreme heat wave. Natalia Prada will give us the details live. Natalia?
Yes, Sarah, this week's heat wave exceeds the previous record set in November 2005 in the city of Bom Jesus by a few points. Temperature in the small city of Aruaçu hit 112.6 Fahrenheit and broke the previous record of 112.4 Fahrenheit in 2005. The extreme heat wave has endangered lives, caused power outages, threatened crops, and worsened the drought in the Amazon. Famous singer-songwriter Taylor Swift was forced to postpone Eras Tour concert in Rio de Janeiro on Saturday after a 23-year-old fan died due to the extreme heat. Moreover, parts of Pantanal, the world's largest tropical wetland found in Brazil, have been burning for weeks now, with 3,380 fires detected in the first 70 days of November. Brazil has recorded its 8th heat wave this year. Sarah, experts blame El Nino and climate change for the dangerous heat wave that has been going on for weeks now. Back to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Natalia, for that live report. Meanwhile, the death toll from the ongoing Palestine-Israel conflict has exceeded 15,500 as the war grinds on. The death toll in the Gaza Strip has surpassed 14,000 since the current Israel-Hamas conflict broke out on October 7, as said by the Hamas-run government media office. According to Ismail Al-Tawabta, Director General of the media office, among the killed Palestinians were 5,840 children and 3,920 women, while more than 33,000 others were injured. The number of missing persons has surpassed 6,800, and this includes 4,500 children and women under the rubble of buildings destroyed in Israeli attacks. On the Israeli side, government data showed that around 1,200 people have lost their lives. Meanwhile, the government of Israel has voted to accept a deal for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza. And during this time, some hostages held by Hamas will be released in exchange for Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails. Jane Ganita reports.
The Israeli side agreed to release Palestinian prisoners and allow more humanitarian aid to enter the besieged enclave in exchange for Hamas to release hostages, as stated by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office. Under the deal, at least 50 hostages, mainly children and women, would be freed in exchange for the release of about 150 Palestinian prisoners from Israeli prisons. Meanwhile, Hamas confirmed the 4-day ceasefire agreement with Israel on Wednesday under a Qatari-Egyptian mediation after 46 days of bloody conflict in the besieged coastal enclave. According to the Israeli government, during the 4-day ceasefire, the Palestinian personnel can move freely along the Salahuddin Highway, an area that runs through the north and south of the Gaza Strip. Hundreds of trucks loaded with humanitarian aid, medicine, and fuel will also be allowed to enter all areas of the Gaza Strip. To recall, earlier on Tuesday, Netanyahu asked his government to support the deal to secure the release of all hostages. Netanyahu said that this was a difficult decision to take, but also the right thing to do.
עכשיו לפנינו הערב החלטה קשה, אבל היא ההחלטה הנכונה. כל גורמי הביטחון תומכים בה, באופן מלא. הם הבהירו במלוא הערכתם המקצועית שביטחון כוחותינו יובטח בימי ההפוגה ושהמאמץ המודיעיני יישמר בימים אלה. הם הבהירו שהמאמץ המלחמתי לא רק שלא ייפגע, אלא להפך. הדבר יאפשר לצה"ל להיערך להמשך הלחימה. ואני מבקש להעביר כאן שוב. המלחמה נמשכת, המלחמה תימשך עד שנשיג את כל יעדינו. לחסל את החמאס, להשיב את כל חטופינו, ולהבטיח שביום אחרי החמאס, עזה לא תאיים יותר על ישראל, לא יהיה בה שום גורם שתומך בטרור, שמחנך את ילדיו לטרור, ושמאיים על מדינת ישראל. בעזרת השם נעשה ונצליח, ויחד ננצח.
To recall, Hamas took over 240 hostages, including elderly people and children, during the unprecedented October 7 attack on Israel. Reporting, this has been Jane Cognita, SMNI News.
Iran unveiled to the world its upgraded hypersonic ballistic missile amid tensions with Israel and the United States. Melchizedek Cadiz has the news.
The UAE has taken another significant leap in the nation's space capabilities through its latest radar project at a time when the oil-rich Gulf state is committed to pursuing its space ambitions. Sheikh Khalid bin Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, and Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Crown Prince of Dubai, oversaw the execution phase of the radar satellite constellation project known as the SERB program. The satellite project will support the UAE's efforts to find solutions to climate change challenges and environmental sustainability, contribute to urban development, integrate efforts to tackle natural disasters, and support food security challenges. The country aims to launch its first satellite sometime in 2026 under the SERB program. In October 2018, the Global marked a new era in global space exploration when it launched Khalifa-Sat, the country's first satellite built from scratch. The UAE also announced plans to explore the Moon, Mars, and asteroid belt in the next 5 years. According to the Abu Dhabi Crown Prince, the initiative is part of the UAE's ambitious vision to become a global hub for manufacturing and operating satellites. Reporting from Dubai, this has been Gratero Omori, SMNI News, United Arab Emirates.
Lawmakers of South Africa voted to suspend ties with Israel and close its embassy there as tensions increased between the two countries over Israeli strikes on Gaza. As Elisa Torres reports.
South African lawmakers voted decisively on Tuesday to close the Israeli embassy in Pretoria and suspend all diplomatic relations with Israel until a ceasefire is reached in the current conflict between Israel and Hamas. The resolution, adopted by a margin of 248 to 91, comes as tensions continue to rise in the region. The move coincided with a bilateral agreement releasing hostages and prisoners, including a 4-day Gaza truce. The symbolic resolution awaits action from President Ramaphosa's government. The Israeli ambassador in Pretoria was recalled ahead of the vote. It can be noted that the action was introduced by Economic Freedom Fighters, the left-wing opposition party in South Africa, and was backed by the ruling African National Congress. The pro-Israel Democratic Alliance, meanwhile, opposed the resolution. To recall, BRICS leaders held a virtual emergency summit to discuss the Israel-Hamas war but failed to reach a joint declaration due to time constraints. Meanwhile, South African President Ramaphosa emphasized the call for restraint and a peaceful resolution. He also welcomed the 4-day humanitarian pause in Gaza. Reporting, this has been Alisa Torres, SMNI News.
India has resumed its e-visa services for Canadian nationals after a 2-month pause amid strained relations. To recall, India suspended the issuing of e-visa services on September 21 following the strain in the relationship between New Delhi and Ottawa after Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau alleged an Indian government link in the killing of pro-Khalistani leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar in British Columbia. But in October, New Delhi resumed visa services in certain categories for Canadian citizens, and this includes tourist, employment, student, film, missionary, and journalist visas. As for the alleged involvement of India in the killing of Nijjar, Trudeau claimed that there were credible allegations of a potential link between Indian agents and the death of Nijjar, but Canada provided no evidence. Still, Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar reiterated India's willingness to consider an investigation. In other news, the government of Thailand has unveiled a new foreign affairs policy that will see Thai ambassadors playing an important role in promoting the country overseas. Chatmongkon Pizamaygozon has the news.
Thai Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin presented details of his proactive diplomacy policy as he called on representatives of the country to help implement stronger economic diplomacy. Srettha outlined the plan at an annual gathering of Thai ambassadors, consul generals, commerce attaches, and investment promotion officers with Thai embassies. The initiative will require the help of Thai ambassadors to promote Thailand's trade, investment, tourism, and soft power overseas. The Prime Minister also presented a second framework that aims to protect the good reputation and dignity of the Thai royal family. The former property tycoon turned Prime Minister spent 2 months traveling and visiting leaders from different countries to attract more foreign investors. รายงานจากราชบุรี นายชัดมงคลพิสมัยโกศล SMS News ประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับ
Hundreds of Rohingya refugees arrived on the shores of Indonesia in the past few days as members of the ethnic minority group. Anissa de Guzman has the details.
Indonesia is witnessing a new wave of refugee crisis amid the surge of Rohingya Muslims in the country. More than 1,000 members of Rohingya refugees arrived in Indonesia in the span of 1 week. Around 200 Rohingya refugees were the latest batch to arrive in Indonesia on Wednesday, according to the United Nations. The arrival of the refugees was continuous, and residents from the Aceh Utara district prevented one group of about 200 people from entering the area. Thousands of Rohingya refugees, most of them Muslims, risked their lives on long, dangerous and expensive journeys at sea every year just to reach Malaysia or Indonesia. Indonesia's foreign ministry made it clear that the Southeast Asian country has no obligation nor capacity to accommodate refugees. Indonesia is also not a signatory of the UN Refugee Convention. Disha Anissa de Guzman, Ranganchak Kuntep Mahanakon, SMN News, Pratatay, Sawadika.
The CEO of Binance, Changpeng Zhao, resigned after pleading guilty to money laundering. He is so far the most influential figure in the crypto industry to pay a fine of $50 million. Justine Nazario tells us more.
Changpeng Zhao, founder and CEO of Binance, has stepped down after admitting guilty to violating U.S. anti-money laundering laws. Zhao, also known as CZ, is a Chinese-born Canadian businessman. In 2017, he founded Binance, a cryptocurrency exchange that gained huge popularity because of its low trading fees and user-friendly interface. But now, Zhao is facing a $50 million fine and a 3-year ban from managerial roles within the company. The U.S. Justice Department has revealed that Binance, the company, will pay $4.3 billion in fines and restitution with the appointment of a monitor. Meanwhile, Zhao may face an 18-month prison sentence, the maximum under federal guidelines. It was Zhao who made the announcement of his resignation via X, in which he admitted his mistakes and introduced Richard Tang as the new CEO of Binance. Richard Tang, Binance's former global head of regional markets, has been appointed as the new CEO. Tang is the former global head of regional markets at Binance. The crypto industry awaits the impact of these developments on Binance operations and the broader regulatory landscape. Reporting for Newsline World, this is Justine Nazario, SMNI News.
More Australians were able to leave Gaza via the Rafah border crossing within the past 48 hours. Devi Suarez has the report.
67 Australians, permanent residents and their family members have crossed to the Rafah border crossing overnight. Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong confirmed that the second batch of Australians left the war-torn enclave on Tuesday night. Wong reiterated the government's call for a ceasefire and the implementation of a two-state solution.
We have also said that we want to see the next steps towards a sustainable ceasefire, but that it could not be one-sided. And I again reiterate that a long-term enduring peace requires a two-state solution, with Israelis and Palestinians living securely and prosperously within internationally recognised borders. Australia has been working with countries that have influence in the region to help protect and support civilians, to help prevent the conflict from spreading, and to reinforce the need for the just and enduring peace that all of us want.
The first batch, which involved 20 Australian nationals, left the besieged territory in early November after getting trapped for 3 weeks. The Rafah border crossing, which serves as a sole crossing point between Egypt and the Gaza Strip, has opened for the first time in early November since Hamas launched a surprise attack on October 7. more than 500 foreign nationals and dual citizens were allowed to leave the Palestinian territory, including the sick and wounded. The second batch of Australians left the war-torn enclave as Israel and Hamas agreed to pause their fighting in Gaza in exchange for the release of 50 hostages. Reporting from New South Wales, this is Devi Suarez, SMNI News, Australia.
Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy believes that some lawmakers are afraid of the possible return of former President Rodrigo Duterte in the political arena. This comes as some of them are urging the government to give the International Criminal Court, or ICC, a chance to investigate the war on drugs issue. Carlo de la Peña reports.
They are afraid that Duterte will run as senator or even vice president.
This was Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy's remarks as some lawmakers in the Congress are urging the International Criminal Court to intervene by launching an investigation on the anti-illegal drugs campaign of former President Rodrigo Duterte. Pastor Apollo pointed out that the fear of some lawmakers stems from Duterte's challenge to open and publicize the expenditure book of the Congress, and this is why they are making steps to stop FPRRD from returning to power.
Very afraid because hinamon niya sila na ipakita ang libro ng Congress, how the money is being spent. Until now, hindi nila napakita. Because if Duterte will again be in a position of power in any office like senator or vice president, siguradong mawiwindang sila dyan kasi he will have the platform. Kaya pinipigilan nila.
Pastor Apollo wondered why Congress has not yet revealed their books.
Bakit sila maghain ng 1477? Bakit di sila maghain na ipakita ang libro ng Kongreso? How the money is being spent.
Also, Pastor Apollo again urged Congress to do what is right instead of emphasizing the ICC issue against the former president.
So the people are still asking, show us the money.
Yes.
Where the money is being spent. Kasi tayo din sa kingdom na sanayan natin, the people don't have to ask me. We are the one asking the people where your tithes and your money goes. It's open. You can inspect it. We report it in our own congregation. It's there, all the books. Dapat ganun ang Congress of the people. We should not be the one to ask them to show us the books where the money is being spent. They should be the one to publish it voluntarily, where the money is being spent. They should be the one. Pero right now, we are the ones asking them, and there's no answer. That doesn't bode well for the Congress.
In the end, Pastor Apollo stated that some legislators are afraid of losing their position because
the Duterte brand is very powerful.
Yeah.
The people still loves them. 93% pa rin ang popularity ni Pangulong Duterte at ni Vice President Sara. Kaya takot sila mawala ng trabaho.
It can be remembered that just this Tuesday, the Chamber passed to the Committee on Justice a resolution which was authored by Manila 6th District Representative Benny Abante and One Rider Party List Representative Ramon Rodrigo Gutierrez, calling for the government's cooperation with the International Criminal Court for the investigation of the Duterte administration's war on drugs. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy expressed his support for former President Duterte's decision to return to the political arena. Let's get to know more with Daniela Paulite.
Because the Duterte brand is very powerful.
Yeah. Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ supports the decision of former President Rodrigo Duterte to re-enter the political arena if Vice President Sara Duterte is ousted from her position. To recall, in the recent episode of Gikan sa Masa para sa Masa, Duterte mentioned that he might be compelled to return to politics if his daughter, Vice President Sara Duterte, is removed from office amid the ongoing impeachment plans by some congressmen against her. In his Spotlight program aired on Wednesday, Pastor Apollo emphasized that the Philippines still needs someone like former President Duterte, who has a strong leadership.
Well, hindi nadalangin natin. While he is here, he will involve in the national affairs because we still need him. Because he's a good leader. He's a very strong, good leader. And he's good for the stability of our country, that we can stand and be strong in all ways. So 100% talaga support ko sa kanya.
The good pastor also shared that qualities that he wants to see in a leader of the country.
Anyone who wants to become president, the only thing I would like to see in them is their ambition, the state of mind of their ambition to make this country great, to make this country beautiful, to make this country as we want it to be, or just to amass for themselves money, power, and corruption. I hate those kind of people in leadership.
Pastor Apollo added that the leader of the country should have no other ambition but to develop the nation, and that they should never be corrupt.
So we need incorruptible people in that highest position, which has no ambition but to make this country great, beautiful, prosperous, economical, and peaceful. Yun ang gusto natin. Nothing should be attributed to you, money or material things. Property, bahay, sasakyan. Should not be you should not own it. That should be known in your name. It should be for the country.
Meanwhile, Vice President Sarah said that the Duterte family supports the decision of former President Rodrigo Duterte when it comes to politics. For God and my beloved country, this has been Daniela Paulite, SMNI News.
And for our sports news, the World Cup qualifying match between Brazil and Argentina was disrupted after fighting broke out among football fans just before the start of the game. The sixth round of the 2026 World Cup qualifying started almost 30 minutes late after supporters of both football teams clashed with each other. The brawl among fans started during the performance of the national anthems. One fan was injured and needed to be assisted away from the stadium using a stretcher, while police officers were forced to intervene. Argentine players told their Brazilian rivals that they would only return to the pitch after the tension was resolved. In the end, Argentina, led by their captain Lionel Messi, defeated Brazil with a score of 1-0 in the World Cup qualifying match. And before we end, may you be inspired with the message of the appointed Son of God. This ministry is the hope of the world for peace, for prosperity, for the lasting peace that should happen. And for our Christmas countdown, there's only 32 days more to go before Christmas. And that's all for today's edition of Newsline World. For more news update, you may visit SMNINewsChannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Sarah Santos. Thank you for watching Newsline World, and thank you to our beloved Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy, for the opportunity to be a part of this program. May you continue to listen on SMNI as it delivers nothing but fair, truthful, and balanced news, because SMNI is your source of credible news.